Thank you for watching today's training. The recording has begun.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us. This is our last day of training, day 10. And in this training session, we have Mark Chorney and Mindy Thorpe will be giving us our wrap-up, kind of conclude, bring all the pieces together, hit some questions that have come after the sessions, and give you kind of a final, send you on your way to know all things census. So without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Mark and Mindy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the intro, and nice to be back with everybody again. Mindy,
hello again. Hi.
CRR training program mainstay, Mindy Thorpe.
There we go. Yeah. Well, we are really excited about this final day, and Mark and I have chatted a bit about our final day, final wrap-up, and we're hoping to really bring things back around for everyone today. And, you know, hopefully you'll I'm sure you have questions. Hopefully we'll answer them, and just some of the things that you heard about through these days of training. Maybe we'll just confirm a few things, a few questions you had. We're not sure. We'll see how it goes. But I don't know, Mark, we're pretty excited, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of good info to cover today, and got some good wrap-up material and notes and things from the other presenters and trainers that have already have done their recording and presentations. So, and of course, news and updates regarding census operations that are
hot off the press, right?
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's take a look at what we are going to cover today. So we're going to start with best practices and cover some effective messaging for community engagement and when you're speaking to members of the public. Frequently asked questions, some things that often come up when you're speaking to the public, or just the kinds of things that, things that we may have covered already actually, in this training. I'm sure we did, but some of the most kind of popular questions that we tend to see a lot, going to go over those again. I'm going to touch on some rumors, scams, and fraud to be aware of when you're doing your work, and that folks might ask you about, and where you can learn more online about these things, as well as where you as a Bureau employee can report some of these things that you're seeing, as well as where members of the public can do that as well. Miscellaneous, where we will be covering some of the operational updates to the census that were just announced, and a wrap-up covering some of the most important points of each day. Okay, let's move right into best practices then. What we're thinking here with this is these are some of the kind of points that you want to hit on when you're engaging members of the public, and kind of starting places, as opposed to maybe some of the other areas or things that you would maybe not lead with, so to speak. These would be the ones that you want to lead with when you're having conversations or engaging folks in terms of 2020 census. So impact to the community, of course, is, I said this in day one, for us and in partnership, this is one of our favorite things to talk about, one of the points that we really hit on the most and spend a lot of time discussing, and we've gone through this a few times here in the training, I know, but how important it is to federal funding and to how our communities are planned and sustained and developed, and the impact that has on our these federally funded programs in all of the states across the nation. Anything to add there, Mindy? I mean, you can, sort of add as you would like, but I don't know.
Well, when we're out in the field, we get asked a lot of questions, and the big question is why. Let's not even go to the fact that it's mandated by the Constitution. Let's just look at how it affects people. They really want to know how it affects them. So always keeping that in mind and trying to really get down to the ground level of why and how federally funded, the federal funds basically impact every single person in some way, shape, or form. They'll say, you'll get pushback and say, well, I haven't applied to any grants and I don't, use any federal funds. I've never been on unemployment that's state, but you know what I mean? I've never applied for anything. But what they don't think about is the roads. We all drive on the roads, right? We use roads every single day. We have public works out there that are, their budgets are primarily federal funds. The hospitals, I had a lot of conversations about this over the last year and a half about, when people claim to not use any federal funds and yet they will call an ambulance or they, will have EMTs come out for a reason, or they go to a hospital, or their children are in public schools. So they don't realize that the federal funds are affecting so many things. And it's just really about education and awareness. So I guess just to keep that at the forefront of your minds out there in CRR, RA land, that, we need to just meet them where they're at as far as how does it affect them and explain that is the impact to their community. They are using these funds in other ways other than the big picture government that most people think about. So trying to break it down, I guess, is what I'm saying, Mark, is just, really let them know what the ground level looks like on how we use those funds every day.
Absolutely. And that is incredibly well said. And, I'm thinking, too, when I think about this is even if somebody, assumes that they're not using some sort of federal funding or some program that receives federal funding, I mean, we are all, touched by a lot of those programs in many ways. And hey, maybe you're not. Maybe you probably drive on the roads. But in terms of some of the other programs, you might not, but your neighbor might. Or you might have a member of your family, whether it's an immediate member of your family or an extended member of your family, or, a Head Start program in your neighborhood the school lunch programs. I mean, it's pretty far and wide, the amount of people and the different groups of people that are affected by these programs and really, really rely on them.
Well, not only just those big picture items, but let's just think about all the different ways census data are used, right? I mean, our economic development councils use that information every day. Our municipalities and cities and counties use just, strictly Census Bureau data. Many of them do, and here's another fun way that I've explained it to people before, how many times have we heard of that little town somewhere, rural little town, that they are waiting for that threshold that Walmart uses of census data before they have enough population to put a Walmart in their town, right?
Sure.
So I want to say, Mark, you and I were on some webinar in the last year that one of our colleagues was talking about something similar, and they said, hey, this community is behind getting a complete count because they want to show what their accurate and true population is in this city because they really need a resource like a Walmart. And of course, every big business like that has a threshold that it doesn't make financial sense for them to come into an area unless they know they're going to get the return on investment, right? So even that kind of impact to a community is there, without just looking at the big dollar figures of where those federal funds are going. So it's endless. It's really endless.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't think people understand the impact. So we could talk about that. That could be a whole nother training.
Oh, it could. Yeah, you could go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who's on the line here? Mark, Sarah, can we get 10 more sessions? Can we get approved for 10 more, please? Because we want to go deeper. We want to do deeper dives.
Sarah's like, oh, heck no. We're done. This is it. We're wrapping it up. What else you got going on, Mark?
All right. Well, of course, it's going to mouse to respond here. Privacy and confidentiality. I mean, this is one that is crucially important, and that we have to take very extremely seriously as staff members of the Bureau. But as we went over in that day one and the history of the census, and then the history of the privacy and confidentiality, I mean, that has changed so much over the years, and you can point to these times, not that long ago, even, a handful of decades ago, where the privacy and the protections, they weren't there. But now the Bureau, prides itself on having this culture of privacy and confidentiality surrounding its data and how it treats it. So I think, that's definitely something that folks want to hear about, they want to learn about, they have questions about. So it's another type of, or another topic or talking point that we really push when we do our community engagement and are talking with folks about the work that we do.
Yeah, and it would say if there's any paragraph that we should all remember, being out in the field, or, any statistic is, the fact is that the responses to the 2020 census are safe, secure, and protected by federal law, and their answers can only be used to produce statistics, right? So we don't care who they are, we just want their data. And, and that's the fact of the matter, right? We don't care who's the person behind it. We don't want that. We just want to produce statistics. And those statistics cannot be used against you in any way. So, that's just to always push that message out there, and that, and I always back it up with, hey, we are sworn Census Bureau employees, and we took a lifetime oath, and, none of us want to go to prison for 5 years or have a $250,000 penalty, right? So, we take this really, really seriously. And, just make sure you give when you're out in the field, just give them the facts and the data, and not get into the weeds of it, just that we really just want the data, the statistics.
Absolutely. And I tell a lot of times, that, we've got to, the Bureau, has got to take this seriously, and we've got to have, when we're asking for this personal information, this PII, this personal data, we've got to have the public's trust. So we have got to ensure that they know that we take this very, very, very seriously. Yeah.
All right.
Another one is just the multiple response options that are available now for the 2020 census, between doing it online, doing it over the phone, in a variety of languages, online in a variety of languages as well too. Paper form that gets mailed to a lot of folks throughout the country, and then of course if a census taker comes to your door as well. But the multiple self-response options are, it really is easier than ever, and we've seen through the census history how it's not always been easy to respond, or but now with these options, it is really easier than ever. And I will say that when I filled out my census form, I did it online, and I've been talking about census for almost a year at that point. I was just waiting, special moment after talking about it for so long to fill it out, and I was just like, fill it out, and then I'm like, did I miss a question because I'm done already? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it was
it's really quick.
I was like, oh my goodness, yeah.
And the other fun thing to see, I mean, because this is pretty exciting to have the online opportunity. And the fun thing is when you look at that live data coming in each day to see what the overall response is, whether we're looking at the county or the city or the state, and to see the percentage that responded online on the internet. And there were a couple counties in Idaho that their overall response was the same percentage as on internet. So they're saying virtually every single person so far. I'm sure it was a pretty small community, but that was like a week ago. But it's just really interesting to look at that data coming in to see what this response is so far and, how many people have responded by internet. But we do recognize that not everybody has that kind of access. I just actually fielded a call this morning from someone in rural north central Idaho. And, she's got a P.O. box. And she has a landline. She does not have a cell phone. She has no internet, no computer. She's an elderly gal. So, we get those, calls, and we're fielding those. And we just want to make sure that we recognize that not everybody can do that. And so that's why we have all these other options and different operations coming their way. And, not to worry. She was very, very worried that, it was after April 1st and not to worry. So that's, one really exciting thing is we do have a way to find everybody in the United States.
Absolutely. Something else, I do often mention is just the constitutional mandate that we have. I think it's an important part of our, why we do the census and sort of where our mandate comes from. Comes from, a document, an important document from the founding of our nation here 230 some years ago. So that is something that I mention sometimes because it's not something that everybody is aware of. But it's a fact, and I guess maybe even a bit of trivia that sometimes does connect with people.
Yeah, and isn't this our 24th decennial census, I believe? Think about that. 24 times. We've done this 24 times. So I think that's really impactful as well to think, this has been happening since 1790 and this is the 24th time. It's incredible when you think about it.
Oh, it is.
The big picture of it.
Absolutely. And something special about it too is that everybody counts. We citizens, non-citizens. We are to count every inhabitant of this country, of this land, and that is about inclusive as it gets, I would say, because it's everybody, right?
Right. No matter what capacity they are here, they count.
We talked about this, touched on it briefly, but ease of completion in terms of the online form, whether you're doing it on a laptop, an iPad, some other tablet. I did it on my phone, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It was super easy. We have one of our folks on our team did the whole American Community Survey on his phone, and he reported how easy it was, and that's a lot, significantly more amount of questions than the census. I was impressed by that, but he said it was like that was super easy too. So. It is pretty simple. And, of course, filling out the form itself if you have the paper form. I have not I filled it out over the phone, but I'm assuming that it's just as simple doing it via toll-free number, talking to a person because same amount of questions and so forth.
Right. I haven't had any feedback on someone doing it over the phone on how long it is taking on the phone. I have not heard that yet. So note to each ourselves to start asking questions about that because I'm sure that the CRRs will get questions out there. I mentioned in I think one of the prior trainings that when they're out there, they may not have, somebody who is really ready to complete the questionnaire with them right in that moment. They're still on the fence. They're still thinking about it. And, that's okay. Part of this job and our responsibility is outreach. That's still engaging with someone and talking to them, right? So, but they could get that, question and they'll say, well, I'm going to go home and I'll probably just call in. How long does it take? So I think once we start getting some feedback on how long it takes on the phone for, let's say, an average family, maybe of 4 or something, just an average, that'll be good for the CRRs to know. So CRRs, please make sure you reach out to your partnership specialist. By the time we get kicked off, I think we'll probably have some feedback on how long those phone responses are taking. Yeah,
that's a good point. And the last one I have here on the slide is just leadership and stakeholder investment. And, something that is good to know is in your area, whether it's at the state level or the county level, at the nonprofit level, faith-based communities, who are some of the leaders and some of the organizations in your area that are invested in the census and saying, hey, this is important. It's something that I like to talk about when I'm, doing a presentation or having conversations. The Chamber of Commerce here in town really wants you to fill out your census. They know it's important, or, this group or that group, or it can sometimes, it adds kind of a personal level in terms of, who there in the community is saying, hey, census is important to us, and can kind of, steer some of the focus away from, the fact that, we're all federal employees and this is important to folks in the community, and here's why from these folks that are leaders and trusted voices.
Right, and that's the real key to it there. They are trusted voices, and there's a lot of leadership positions out there and people that are, just trusted more in different capacities of whatever they're doing in the community. And when they are on board and they tell their constituents how important this is and this is why, they listen differently. It's not that they're not listening to us, but they do listen a little differently, and it hits home a little bit more when you really find those leaders in a community and the stakeholders, like the cities, municipalities. They're really very heavily vested in this census data as well, for their economic development of their communities. So,
absolutely. And I would say as a tip, I think I would suggest that CRRs, if they are going to work in a new area, or once the MQA program, their initiative begins, ask your partnership specialist who set up that MQA, like, hey, who are some of the folks in this community or in the area that are like really invested in the census? The city council, is it some of the schools? Is it some of the faith-based members of the community? You know what I mean? And kind of get some of that knowledge. So it's something that you can talk about when you're there engaging folks at that MQA.
Yep, that's a good point.
All righty, let's move on to some of the frequently asked questions.
Oh yeah, aren't these fun? and are we having a good time yet? Sound like Brian the other day. But we get a lot of frequently asked questions, and this first one is one that we get a lot, and this is a very important question. What is the last date I can respond to the census online? It's really important now more than ever because we did get some operational updates recently. I mentioned some hot off the press. We will talk about those updates at the end, right, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I did drop in this update here, so I'll go ahead and
awesome.
General way that we would respond to this is self-response for the 2020 census ends on October 31st. That's news. However, we encourage everyone to respond as soon as possible. Responding only takes a few short minutes and can be completed online at 2020census.gov or by calling one of our toll-free numbers. Also keep in mind that if you don't respond by mid-August, also news, you will likely be visited by a census taker to collect your response in person. So often when we answer that question, as you can see here, we give the date, but we also encourage folks, please, as soon as possible, fill out your census form, essentially.
Right.
Take a look at our next one that we get pretty often here. And here, I'll read this one for us, Mindy. How is the privacy of respondents protected?
Well, Mark, all of our responses are protected by Title 13 of the U.S. Code, and I think you all have heard quite a bit about this in earlier recordings, earlier trainings, but, I mentioned it a little bit when we were kind of starting this particular training. The law restricts the U.S. Census Bureau from publishing our responses in any way or releasing them in any way to any other bureau, department, agency, or law enforcement. Only aggregate data can be published by the Bureau. Remember, they don't care about who we are. They just want our statistics, right? We're just a number to them, which is okay. I'm happy to be a number. But after 72 years, census records are publicly available through the National Archives, which is really exciting for those buffs out there that really like to do the family trees, and they're really into their back. What am I trying to call it? My brain's a
genealogy.
Genealogy, yeah, the genealogy buffs out there, and so it's really important. I think we just had another release, or we have another release later this year, I think. Can't remember what it is. We read a lot of stuff every day coming through, but we do have we will, I believe, a new release of data coming. So, boy, that internet site will be really busy when that gets released.
Did you say 2022, Mark? Is that what you said?
Yep, 72 years. The 1950 census will be released in 2022. Don't ask me the date.
We're all going to chomp at the bit until then, right?
Edge of our seats.
Yeah, so what other kind of questions do we have?
All right, we have a related question, which is,
all right.
Is it required by law that I respond to the census? What happens if I don't respond?
Well, what happens, Mark? Did somebody go to jail? And they go to jail?
They do not. No, they do not. However, it is true that federal law requires a response to the census. If you don't self-respond to the census, a census taker will follow up with you in person. Essentially. So that's, this is a bit of a different question than what happens if I outright sort of refuse to respond, but we'll touch on that in actually our next question.
Oh, yes, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. So
No, that's okay.
One. Yeah,
let's take a look at that because it is related.
Yeah, so the next one, could I be jailed for not responding to the census? And the answer, Mark?
The answer is no. That is not a risk for not responding to the census. It is within the law that folks can be fined for failing to respond. That's not one of our lead kind of talking points or a thing that we promote very much because we would rather encourage folks to respond to the census because it's so important to their community and to how services and their communities and places are.
Right. We just really want them to feel like it's their civic duty, right? So that's what I always push. It's really a civic duty of ours to respond, and no, they're not going to go to jail, but we really want to just reshape and rephrase that question and just, you know, put it back at, hey, it's really a civic duty. You know, let's look at it that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So,
all right.
Something
so the
else
next
that
one.
this one here.
All right. How do I receive a paper form? Well,
I'll tell you. So most households in the U.S. Are mailed forms if they have not self-responded online or by phone by April 8th, which has passed us at this point. However, there's not a process for requesting a paper form or like receiving a replacement if yours is like damaged or spill some coffee on it or something. So if someone inquires about that, like how do I request a paper form, you know, what we do is we direct them to self-respond at 2020census.gov or to call one of the toll-free numbers. Where, like I said, there's really not a process or mechanism for requesting one or a replacement. So that would be how you sort of answer that and address that question. And I've been getting this pretty frequently. How about you, Mindy?
Yeah, I have too, and you know, I get a question a lot. They will say, "Where can I go to go get an extra form? You know, where can I get where will someone be, you know, holding extras? Will you have the extras? Will the community stakeholders have them?" So there are no extras. Basically, we do not have stacks of additional paper forms out there, and to my knowledge, we will not. So, is that the last you heard as well?
Yeah,
Mark?
yeah. I mean, that's my understanding too. There's not a plan to have just forms out in the community library or something like that, because every form and everything we mail out is geocoded to, you know, is attached on a physical place on a map through a barcode and that sort of thing for all of those materials. So it's not the kind of thing like voter registration forms or even tax forms that are just kind of out there for folks. Yeah.
So what would your answer be if someone came to a CRR at, let's say, an MQA event and brought this crumpled up piece of paper and it was this decennial census and said, "My dog ate it"? You know, what do I do now?
I think I would say that you might want to change your dog's diet. And then I would say,
there you go.
I can
feed
help
it
you
a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, your dog might be hungry. Your dog's trying to send you a message. And say that, hey, you know what, I can help you with this right now. If you want to fill out the form, I've got the iPad here. If you've got a cell phone on you, a mobile phone that connects to the internet, I can show you the way to 2020census.gov. And if you have any questions, we could probably do this in about 5 minutes right now. Or I've got the phone number if you want to call the toll-free number when you have a couple extra minutes.
There you go. And that should work. Well, we're hoping we're hoping they just will find a different way to respond, or they could just sit back and wait for maybe someone coming to their door. But I don't think anyone really wants that, you know.
Yeah, right. Take a look at the next one here.
All right. Why didn't I receive census mail at my P.O. box? This is a little lengthy of an answer, right, Mark?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one, this one's a little technical, so it depends on how I think the person responding to this would want to address it. But essentially, the Census Bureau sends mail to physical addresses where people live or stay. And since that's not the case at a P.O. box, and which is then complicated by the fact that P.O. boxes can change holders frequently, we don't address mail to P.O. boxes. Often that is enough of an answer for folks. However, if you need to go into more detail, you can let them know that residents that don't have direct mail delivery, who only get mail at P.O. boxes, should expect to be included in our update leave or update enumerate operations. Even further is that there have been some reports that there are residents who kind of don't have direct mail and are not maybe included in those operations, and I mean that's something that we're looking into. However, as you were saying, our kind of last line of defense in terms of collecting census data is always the census taker, the enumerator, right? So folks don't have to be concerned about not being included in the census if they didn't get something in the mail. There is always our non-response follow-up operation that goes to folks' homes where they haven't responded yet. So, like I said, there's a kind of a couple pieces to this answer, but good to familiarize yourself with, maybe why someone hasn't received mail at their P.O. box. Yeah,
and if you do get someone asking that question or wondering about their P.O. box, they still could respond a different way. An MQA perhaps, when that gets up and going. It doesn't mean that they have to wait for someone to come. They can use the phone to respond as well. But just because they have a P.O. box and they're not getting it directly mailed to them doesn't mean they can't respond right away. So, make sure when you're out in the field to let them know that. They don't have to wait for update leave or update enumerate. They can respond right here and now. Let's say you're at an event and you have your device, and you might get that question: why haven't I received anything in the mail? And if you ask, well, do you have a P.O. box? And then that would be your answer. But no, never worry, we can take care of it right here too. So
that's perfect. Yeah, that's a perfect way to address that too. Like, sorry to hear that, but hey, you know what? We can take care of this right now if you haven't responded yet. Yeah, well stated. What else do we get asked a lot? This is going to be familiar, but so important. Are my responses confidential?
Well, gosh, we did kind of answer that already, didn't we? Yeah. But it's a question that you as a CRR will get all the time. I'm afraid to respond because, I'm not sure my responses, my answers are confidential. Just, again, keep that paragraph I mentioned in your head, those bullet points of what we really, what the goal is. To count everyone once and only once and in the right place, and it is protected. So, yes, the answers are confidential.
Absolutely, and some of this stuff, too, is review. We've talked about this several times, but in terms of, like, the confidentiality and the privacy and the impact to community and the ease of filling it out, a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the best practices actually are also just the things that it's like, if you those are some of the the main things to really internalize and to hear them over and over, and then almost like kind of practice what those points are, because those are the ones you find that those are the things that people have the most questions about, and that you are kind of get asked about the most, I think. So I think it's helpful that we are covering these things a couple times, because it underscores how important these topics are.
Right, and these trainings do go by fairly quickly. They're getting a lot of information, throwing at them, and so it doesn't hurt to hear some of these best practices and nuances, answers a few different times, so it really sinks in, and then it's just going to roll off your tongue. And don't worry, you're going to be able to just handle it all out there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
What is our next question?
So this is a good one that I don't know if this has been covered yet, but I completed the census already. Why am I still receiving mail?
Mm-hmm. Hey, well, this happened to me.
Me too.
Personally, yeah. So I did complete my census online, let's back up. I got my invitation to respond, just like all the documents that I would, and I went online. I used my code. I responded, and then literally the next week I got another one. And it's just simply because, you know, by the time that mailing went out, maybe they just didn't capture the information. I think there's just a crossover there, and once they have it recorded that I responded, and then they stop my mails, because I have never gotten another thing since. Have you?
Nope. No, I haven't. No, I got the reminder postcard, and that came, you know, a couple days after I had submitted my form. So yeah, I was already marked as having not responded. So it came, and I recycled it. And haven't heard back since.
Yeah, me too. All is good in the world.
Yeah. Another one, and we have talked about this a bit, but again, good to go over how is census data used.
Yeah,
well,
and you know, for those CRRs out there that want a little bit more ammunition out there with you, if you really have someone who really wants to know, you know, a lot more details, we, meaning your partnership specialist, we do have a document that we can send you. We can email it over to you, and it's called 50 Ways Census Data Are Used. And it's just, you know, a little bullet points of all the different ways that the census data is used. The big picture stuff is right there on the screen. Mark and I already talked about that. But boy, you know, I'm looking at this list right now, and planning urban land use, planning outreach strategies, understanding labor supply, you know, making business decisions. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Not only planning for, you know, the bigger picture businesses, but faith-based organizations, right? What about community centers for the elderly, you know, let's say senior centers. So, you know, one thing that they are notating and really looking at in the data is, you know, they ask us our birth, you know, our date of birth and how old we are, because if there is a bigger number or higher population, let's say it's a very young community, and there are some of those throughout the country, right? New housing going in, a lot of young families going in, that community. I mean, the city I live in right this minute was a very young community when I moved here, and we had a lot of young families. We all had young kids, and we look at that data of the ages, because if it's a community that has, let's say, more children that are 5 and under, then that community may get more Head Start program funding, you know, or other funding around, you know, different kind of programs for children. Same with seniors, right? Let's look at the Villages, Florida, right? That's the biggest retirement community in the whole entire country. And I can't remember what city in Florida, but they are clearly going to have a higher number of seniors per capita. And so that community might get more funding built around senior needs. Yeah. So the census data is used for so many more things than just that big picture federal funding, and we do have more resources for you as a CRR if you are looking for that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because folks listening and CRRs, they should definitely seek out some of those resources, and partnership specialists should all be very familiar with that 50 ways census data are used, and the George Washington University study about how the federal funding is distributed to the 50 states, and you know, there's a couple others there too, but those are two of the you know, my go-tos definitely when I'm talking to folks, and yeah, we can point you in the direction of those for sure.
Just let us know.
Yeah.
What else you got, Mark?
We've got one more here, one more planned, and that is, will my information be, there's two more. So we actually covered this one as well. Will my information be disclosed to other agencies? And we did talk about this, but again, we cannot share information that we collect. It's federal law protects it. This is Title 13 that covers that, and we can only use responses to produce statistics. I know, that might not sound too exciting to folks. Aggregate data
and to others of us, it sounds really exciting, right?
Sounds very exciting.
Sorry,
yeah, right. No. That's exactly where I was going with it. But it's so. It's so important. That's how we plan. That's how we, develop and move forward and sustain communities too. So.
You bet.
Yeah. So I think that leaves us with one more here, and that is it safe to respond online?
Yeah, and another one we pretty much covered. But do you want to touch a little bit on the encrypted websites and just the testing and the load testing they've done over the years? And a lot of it I don't understand, which is why I'm asking you, because some of it's so technical. I'm not a real techie person.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the challenge of talking about this is like as we have in sort of the answer here on the screen, the Bureau follows industry best practices to protect data, and when you're in the internet self-response, for example, when you're in there, your information is encrypted and steps are taken to ensure that data is taken offline and after it's received and inaccessible to folks, of course, outside of the Bureau, and keeping those servers monitored and locked down so physically people can't get to them too that aren't authorized. So I think one of the funny things not actually funny, of course, but about this is when you're talking about it, when you're talking about like data security, it's very challenging to not just get technical because, it is technical, right? So it's trying to find a way to send the message that, yes, it's something the Bureau takes seriously. They've done the testing. They have the infrastructure in place. They're constantly monitoring new threats because that stuff changes, malware and different computer viruses and bugs. That stuff changes all the time. So it's something that the Bureau has to constantly monitor and respond to and ensure that they are staying on top of all those, new cyber threats and the some of the dangers of the digital world, if you will.
Right, and they have hired people for many, many years now to try to get in there to make sure that we are secure, and we are secure. I feel, I clearly I did it online, but I would feel very comfortable encouraging people in my community to respond online, that it is safe and important to do so.
Absolutely. So that actually wraps up our planned questions. Mindy, have you seen anything come in from our
No, I don't
audience?
think we have. Not yet. We don't have anything on this section, so it looks like we can move on to the next section.
Okay, we're doing good here. Okay, next we are going to cover some rumors, scams, and fraud. And like I said, some of these things here, a lot of this is taken, all taken from the handout from the Bureau and the Bureau website and that information. But I want to start with a couple of things that will be review, but some things that folks, might not necessarily CRRs, but folks in the public might not totally be clear on yet, despite our best efforts. So let's take a look. One of them is the 2020 census does not ask about citizenship status, and of course this is something that if folks are confused about this, that's understandable, right? Because
it's heavily in the media for a while, so
heavily in the media.
A lot of people are aware there was some discussion around this. But the final is that we do not ask.
That's right.
Correct? Yeah. Are you getting a lot of questions about that still?
No, actually. To tell you the truth, when I would have conversations and do presentations, I probably brought it up more than anybody else, which I was always sort of surprised by. And the way I would bring it up is like, here are some things that are not on the census form, right? Like that would be my how I would kind of frame it. But I've not been asked about it very, very much at all. And since the census has opened up, I really haven't been asked too much. And I hope that means it's because we've done a good job at spreading the word that it's not on there.
Right. I think that I think it's a moot point now. I think it's kind of over. I haven't had a lot of questions about it either, and I think we've all moved on. But the final is that we do not ask that on the questionnaire.
You got it. Another one is that, and we were talking about this earlier, but non-citizens are counted in the 2020 census, and everybody counts. And another thing is these are the types of things, these census rumors are the types of things that, you might see rumors that like only citizens are counted in the census, or the census requires that you answer a citizenship question. We're trying to let, you folks know at CRRs that to familiarize yourself with some of the wrong information that you might see out there and be aware so that you can identify it and then even, report it, which we can talk about in a few minutes here. But important to remember, yes, non-citizens are counted in the 2020 census. We count everybody.
All right.
Again, census responses cannot be shared with law enforcement, and they also can't be used against you. So something I know that some concerns people have are, maybe folks are, living in some sort of like age-restricted housing, but, they have a grandchild or something that has had to stay with them for, a long period of time. And like technically, that's not something that is allowable by their lease, and they're afraid to, depending on the circumstances, like include them on the census form or what have you. But it's important to know that, again, can't share with law enforcement, can't use it against you, can't share it with a landlord. All that is totally protected by Title 13 of United States Code.
And that the landlord part of it is something that I do just want to point out really quickly, because there are traditionally we don't have as high of a response sometimes from renters in the past, and so it's been recognized that might be a concern, that somehow your landlord could hear get their hands on that information. And please know that, make sure you let the community know when you're out there is the landlords can never get any, bit of information on your responses. So, they just need to feel secure in responding correctly. There are, maybe there's a concern that there are more people living in a home than the landlord is aware of. We are really interested in the data about the families and, the multifamilies in a home, because there's different surveys and data points that are created for that kind of data, but we don't respond or report that to your landlord. They might care about that, but we do not. So that is something I've actually had a lot more questions on just in the last couple months. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that, Mark.
Yeah, it's an important one for sure. Also remember that folks are not required to take the census online. I understand that there are some rumors going around that, the first online census, you have to do it online. You can only do it online. But as we said many times, It's not. We encourage folks to do it online, but they have other options as well. So if you see that somewhere that folks are required to take the census online, know that is just not true.
Right. We are going to try to meet everyone where they're at and have give them the different resources to respond. We'd love them to respond online because it's quick and easy, and we get that live data, but there's no requirement saying that they have to.
Yeah. And one last one here, just reiterate that on the 2020 census, the Census Bureau will not ask for Social Security number, money, or donations, anything on behalf of a political party or bank or credit card information. And I know I've seen some mailers and things that have gone out not from the Census Bureau that are political party affiliated and sort of trying to make you think that it's the census. So it's good to know that the Bureau doesn't ask for anything on behalf of a political party or this other information here. A good thing to reiterate to folks. Awesome. Okay, let's go over a couple of legitimate. This is going to sound like an oxymoron. Legitimate rumors, identified rumors. Let's say.
There you go.
That the Bureau has identified and wants us all to be aware of. So there's a report alleging that a data breach of records may have originated from the U.S. Census Bureau, and that some of our private data got out. But this is false. This is not something that occurred. And let's look at this a little more closely. The Census Bureau systems were not compromised. The Bureau reviewed the situation. I guess there was a website that alleged that much of the data on the main folder might have originated from the U.S. Census Bureau. Again, this is false. After the Bureau looked into it, they identified this as not being true. And the Bureau, looked into this, like I said, reviewed the sample data and determined that it did not come from the Census Bureau. Again, this is something that came from the Bureau itself in terms of the reporting of this. This is not a rumor that I have personally come in contact with in my sort of use of the internet or even in, news or that I've read or heard or anything like that. But apparently it is out there. Mindy, have you come in contact with this one?
I have not heard this one. Yeah. So it was really interesting to read about this one because I have not had any reports of this at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me either. But that's why it's good to know about. So if, for the folks listening, if anybody were to come up and inquire about this, you have a little bit of knowledge here about this rumor. Let's see this next one. So reports relating to census responses being used to impact eligibility for government benefits, including any stimulus package money, are false. And that is essentially because your data and the information that folks give to us is protected by Title 13 of the United States Code, and we can only use it to provide or produce statistics and aggregate data. So we wouldn't be able to use any of that information that we collect to help distribute government benefits or anything like that because it's against federal law. And I think my understanding is this one, again, I haven't seen this anywhere online yet, but I just haven't come in contact with it. But my understanding is maybe that this was connected to the stimulus money from COVID-19 and what Congress passed and all that. But again, that's false. It's just a rumor. So good to know that we couldn't even use that data for this thing.
I've actually had a couple just personal acquaintances ask me about this one. I don't know where they originally heard it. I have not seen this one online either, but I have had people approach me about it, and I think it's simply because of the timing. It's just coincidental that You know,
Yep.
the 2020 decennial census is happening during this crazy time that, you know, none of us were expecting. And so I think it's just coincidental, and just please reassure anyone that is absolutely false.
Yeah. And this is actually, I mean, if you're just asking this, if someone came up to you and said, hey, we got this, there's a stimulus package, you know, folks are going to get checks. Some of it is based on their salary. Is census data able to be used for that? That's a pretty legitimate question. Like, that's a good question.
Sure.
You know, and so it's good to know actually that, you know, the answer to that as well. I mean, rumors and things aside, it's a decent question for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. This next one is interesting. I've not encountered this like all these, but supposedly there were reports alleging that the census form, the online one, is incompatible with computers made before 2008. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I've not had anybody ask me about this, but
me either.
Take a look at this, and so the online form is available via any computer that works on the internet, you know, whether that's a laptop, tablet, smartphone, desktop computer. So anyone should be able to access it. Now, in terms of what your browser you use, a requirement, I mean, you know, that sort of gets into the weeds of things. But, you know, in general, the online form is available to any computer that connects to the internet, of course. Something that I think that is important is that to know that, you know, there's no special software required to complete the online form in terms of anything that you would need to download to access the online form or something like that. So that's a good thing for folks to keep in mind. Something else is that there's not a Census Bureau app like required to complete the form or even available. I mean, one just doesn't exist to use to access the online form. And before the online form opened up March 12th, leading up to that, there were some questions about is there going to be an app available or, you know, so on and so forth. But of course, there's not. You just access the form by going to 2020census.gov. And of course, that form is mobile optimized for your mobile device, whether that's a kind of a tablet or a phone. And like I said, I did it on my phone, and it was very streamlined and easy to use.
Right.
Take a look at the next one, which is pretty interesting and one that I have actually encountered. So this is called the Department of Home Affairs hoax. Do you know this one, Mindy?
I have heard of it. I have heard of this one, and I don't know if maybe because we chatted about this during a meeting, someone brought it to my attention, but it wasn't someone in the community that brought it to my attention. Yeah.
That's actually how I first heard about it. One of our partners told me about this, and this one's a little complicated, and here's why. So this is essentially a manufactured rumor circulating that people are posing as workers for something called the Department of Home Affairs and are going door to door to confirm that everyone has a valid ID for the census, and then they're committing crimes at these homes they are pretending to canvass. So my understanding of this is that none of that has happened, and that this rumor has been manufactured to make folks think that these crimes are happening. And there's a couple distinctions here. One is that when census workers do visit homes later this year, of course that operation's been pushed back right now. We don't ask to see people's ID, right? It's just not something that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Also important to note that there is no Department of Home Affairs in the United States. That's not something that exists. So keep that in mind. Folks, if folks in the public suspect someone is posing as a Census Bureau employee, just in general, this is good info for CRRs to know, and anybody working, you know, for the Bureau, is that they can call 800-923-8282 to report that if they suspect somebody is impersonating a Bureau employee.
Yeah, that's a great number to have handy.
Yeah. I was going to say, I saw this. I think I saw this well, it was sent to me. I think it might have been circulating on Nextdoor is where I saw it, if I remember correctly. But in any case, I think this is a really good one to know about because it's actually something that I have, somebody brought to my attention and not just something I learned about, researching, and you too have some knowledge of this. So this is a pretty good one. Apparently this was maybe something, or well, I shouldn't say maybe, according to the Bureau, this is something that originated overseas, actually. It's a rumor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you put that in there.
Yeah, thank you. These are interesting to learn about. So let's talk about just reporting rumors. The Census Bureau has a trust and safety team, and you can help them by reporting suspicious, inaccurate, or fraudulent information you read, hear, or spot online. And you can send that info to rumors@census.gov. And let's take a look at a couple of the things that you might want to look out for. I like a message board or a message group, spreading rumors that claiming respondent information is publicly disclosed. For example, if you come across posts shared on social media discouraging 2020 census participation, suspicious emails requesting social security numbers or bank account information for the 2020 census, advertisements on social media sharing 2020 census websites and other inaccurate information. And then, as we talked about, rumors that the 2020 census asks about citizenship status. The Trust and Safety Team is asking for our help as employees of the Bureau to identify some of these rumors and misinformation so they can help make us and correct them as well, which I think is extremely important for sure.
And so they would just want them emailed to that rumors@census.gov if it's something new, and just to keep them updated. And I guess the only thing I'd add to that is just even if you see something out there and you think, gosh, you know what, I bet that someone's already reported this, I shouldn't do it. I'm not going to add to their, workload or their emails. I would say just send it. If there's something that you could definitely tell that is absolutely incorrect and fishy, it's not going to hurt anything to take a screenshot of it or email that email address, with the website or with the information. So it's vital to let us make us aware of these kind of things in an effort to help the confidentiality and security. So we need to know what's out there. We don't know what we don't know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, but thank you for adding that. Speaking of such things, let's see. So, nefarious and challenging are phishing emails, right? Because they are for sure. So I'm going to take a look at some stuff here about these emails, how to ID them, and then where to report them. So a little background: phishing is a criminal act in which someone tries to get your information by pretending to be an entity that you trust. If you go into your email right now, hopefully not your government email. I think the protections in the government email are really strong in terms of what they filter out. I've been really impressed by that. But if you go into your personal email and click on the spam folder, you'll probably see a couple hundred phishing emails. At least
I've got all kinds.
Yeah. And if it makes its way into your inbox, it can be tricky to discern and kind of navigate it and be like, hey, is this the real deal or not? But what they do is they often direct you to a website that looks real but is fake, and then may be infected with malware, which is a kind of a virus or bug that you are unintentionally downloading to your computer by clicking in the email or clicking on the website that it takes you to. a key way to identify scam websites, phishing websites, is to look at the website address. In terms of the Census Bureau, all valid Census Bureau websites have a .gov at the end. So that's really important in terms of, folks who are going to fill out the online census form, or they are on a website and, I don't know or have seen any reports of sort of fake census websites out there, but important to know that all of the valid Bureau websites have that .gov at the end. Good to know that we will not send folks, I mean the public, those who are responding to the census. We don't send unsolicited emails to request participation in the census, and then we also ask for information via email. So, important message is that that you can carry if folks have questions about that in the public. And in a way, we're sort of talking, phishing emails can affect us as Bureau employees, and then they can also affect the public who would maybe get some sort of scam email or phishing email that is purporting to be from the census, right? So it's important for both of us as employees, and then also to know how members of the public might be affected by this as well.
Yep.
So we can take a look at one actually, and this is one, or I should say, this image is pulled from a kind of a phishing and scam email update that was sent to us to make us aware that this stuff is going on, to help identify. And you could see a couple of things on here. And these are some of the key giveaways in terms of scam emails or phishing emails. All improper spelling is a big one. You'll see that in a lot of these emails, and it should be a tip-off. And this example here on the screen is purportedly from the World Health Organization. Clearly not, but you can see it. Coronavirus is misspelled. There are some unprofessional mistakes there in that bottom paragraph, and then you'll often see like really unusual terms and formatting, as you can see in the bottom there. The kind of signature line there below Dr. Stella's name. So these are kind of some of the things you want to look for. It obviously means a closer, really close read of emails. Another big tip there is that, or tip off is, it's asking you to click on a button to download safety measures. So that should kind of set off some of these alarms. So the recommendation is to not open any links or attachments from unknown and suspicious senders who claim to be providing tips or safety measures and money or other services, of course. Here, us at the Census Bureau, if we receive one of these messages in our census 2020 census.gov emails, we should forward to spam. Don't open, don't click, just to forward to spam, or excuse me, forward to spam at census.gov. And then if members of the public can report respective fraud at 844-330-2020. I've seen I've seen a couple of these come through. I'd say that in terms of the security measures, our emails for the Bureau are extremely strong. I've been very by them, and they are always on top of this, sending information, sending out these kind of emails, because again, privacy, confidentiality, data protection, extremely important. So good thing to keep in mind, and look out for these suspicious emails asking you to download this or download that, or have these strange spellings and if it's from somebody you don't know, that sort of thing. Just be careful with it.
Well, and Mark, they're not coming just in the form of email. They are coming by text as well.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so our
right.
other Marky Mark, he had a mayor of a large city in one of his areas recently receive a text message claiming to be on the state's complete count committee. and encouraged him to promote the 2020 census. It looked really legitimate, apparently, but the web address was My Census with an I, micensus.org, and not our regular. Yeah, so remember, like you pointed out, all of our sites will end in the .gov. So it's not just emails, the text messages. I will get a random text message too every now and then, and it will say, oh, you should do this and click here for, more information or, something. So, just be mindful that it is, it's not just an email. It could be text as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up and for Mark mentioning it. Yeah, they keep getting sort of better and better at this, and it's disturbing and alarming, and it means that we have to be just more kind of aware of this and more on our guard, unfortunately. But important to ensure that we're not being fooled by these
right, and there
forces.
could be, it could be something legitimate, but it just, if it looks funny, do a little bit more research, before, because there are a lot of different out there working, again, these complete count committees around the country. They are their own entity in a sense, and so they could create a lot of different websites too. But, if there's any doubt, check it out first. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's sure is complicated in the digital age, isn't it?
It does. It's eased our life in some ways and complicated it in others.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from our chat box there before we move on?
Yeah, so one thing that I think is very notable is that, we do have other surveys out there, and you all, meaning the CRRs, have gone through these trainings, and you did hear about a lot of the different surveys that we have out there. But the one that I think we most often get compared to is the American Community Survey, or the ACS is what we call it. And I actually had a very real live experience with a challenge up in one of my areas up here, because our RA at the time must not have been updated on the other surveys out there and people going door to door, doing these surveys. And so, unfortunately, the RA did not do us justice in saying, oh gosh, no, that's not, there is no other survey. It's just the decennial survey, the questionnaire. So there are a lot out there. The ACS, the American Community Survey, goes to 3.5 million households across the country every year. And it is very long. So one thing to just make sure when, you're out there in the field, you might get someone, when you're talking to someone, you're approaching them saying, can I help you complete your 2020 decennial questionnaire? And they'll say, oh, I've already done it. I had someone come to my door, and we sat at my table and we did it. I did it with them. It was really long, and it took a really long time. Well, my response would be, thank you so much for taking that, but it sounds like you took the American Community Survey and not the 2020 decennial questionnaire. So they are collected the same way. They can still respond, like the data, the responses are collected just like the decennial questionnaire by internet, mail, telephone, or in person, but it is different and it is legitimate. It is conducted by the Census Bureau, and unlike the every 10-year census, this survey continues all year round, every single year, and it's just a much longer survey. And just please be mindful and aware out there that you will get questions on that. Because I know I get them a lot as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing to touch on, and yeah, it kind of underlines the fact too. I mean, that we've got a lot of data and information to collect, and there's surveys going on. So there's, in terms of familiarizing oneself with all of the kind of workings and operations and things of not just the 2020 census, but the Bureau itself. It's a big task, but important to have a good working knowledge of all these different things if you're talking to members of the public, right?
Right, and then if the CRRs have questions, please just contact us. Contact your partnership specialist or contact your ACO, because we could very likely, answer something really quickly for you. And remember, if you don't have an answer to something out in the field, just tell them, gosh, I am so sorry, I don't have an answer, but let me get back to you with that. And then, look it up. So, yeah.
Well said. Should we move on to our next section here?
Let's do it. Let's go.
Great. If we're going to wrap up, take a look at each day and just touch on some of the key points. Spoke with the trainers from each session and asked them, if you had a handful of takeaways from each day that you would want the CRRs to walk away with, what would those be? So that's what we did, and let's take a look what they gave us here.
Yeah, so these are just like the highlights. So all the facilitators that you have listened to over the course of these 10 days, these are the final kind of big picture things they really want you to walk away with. If you walk away with anything, walk away with these points, basically. So day one. You and I did day one, yeah.
We did day one.
This seemed like a lifetime ago, but day one was
I think it was
101.
last Monday.
History of the census, that we found out that you are quite well versed in the history, and you should probably go on Jeopardy to show your knowledge. Privacy and confidentiality, and the introduction to the MQA, which I ended up doing that with my other Marky Mark on day 8. We did that, yeah. So what were our highlights, Mark, on this one?
So one of them is just that the decennial census is mandated by the Constitution and is used to apportion the U.S. House of Representatives. Census data are crucial to, the billions of dollars of funding every year in guiding that, which is something that we talk a lot about today, of course, already. Our self-response options, online, 2020census.gov, phone, and then mail as well. The privacy and confidentiality. Sorry, I was getting another phone call came in, kind of distracted me. And that we can only publish aggregate data, that we produce statistics. And then that the census doesn't ask, as we were just talking about, citizenship status, social security number, bank account, a credit card, or anything on behalf of a political party.
That's a good wrap up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about day 2.
Take a look. So we had recruiting, what we ask on the form, and the internet self-response. Want to go over these ones, Mindy?
Yeah. So the takeaways on this one, they would like you to walk away with is that the ISR, or the internet self-response, is easy, safe, and confidential. We talked about all 3 of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the toll-free number for the ISR is available in 13 languages, including English, and you will all have documentation on that. Again, I mentioned in one of these trainings that you will have a language guide card with you to carry with you every day, so you will have all that information. You can still respond to the census if you don't have your census ID number. So keep that in mind, because when we get the invitation to respond to the census, we're all given a unique number that actually corresponds with our household, with our housing unit. So it's nice for us to have it, but we do not need it. A questionnaire should include everyone living in that residence regardless of the relationship. And last one, the Census Bureau will not tell you how you should respond. We want people to self-identify. So we did talk about this in another prior training. If there was a question how someone would respond if they're transgender, for example, and they would respond the way they identify themselves. So it's as simple as that. You self-identify, and that goes for race as well as sex.
Absolutely. All good points there. I'm really, I'm especially glad that those last two there were included for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Look at day 3. So we went over hard-to-count populations, communication barriers, cultural awareness, distrust of government, and challenges. So let's see what our trainers wanted us to take away from and remember about this training. So that historical trauma creates barriers between cultures. History and understanding societal context are important in comprehending the communities that you work with. We touched on this one a little bit today. Trusted voices are important players, crucial players, I think, in helping the census attain a complete and accurate count. I like this one. We are not perfect, but by understanding our own biases, we are able to break down cultural barriers. And remembering that communication is key.
I like the second to last one too, Mark. I think it's really important for us to understand, who we are too, right? And nobody's perfect, but if we understand a lot, we will, or we try to understand, we all come in contact with a lot of very diverse groups when we're out working with the communities. And so we just need to be really mindful of that and, let's break down those barriers. And this is a completely inclusive experience that we're all going through.
You got it.
All right. Let's talk about day 4.
Partnership team outreach strategies. All
right.
You want to take this one on here, Mindy?
This one. Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, okay. So although approached in a variety of ways, community-based organizations play a very large role in encouraging a complete count and participation in self-response. And we have talked about that off and on throughout this series of trainings and how important those partners are to us. I think that one of our takeaways, I think maybe on day 8, we talked about this a little bit about please be mindful that we've worked very, very hard in creating these partnerships, and we've built relationships. And they are an integral part of this process and the community trust. And, this is part of the outreach strategy that we've been using. And we also, really want to thank the CRRs and the RAs out there as well for the partnerships that they've set up. Yeah. They've brought some to us over this course of this experience as well. So we take those very seriously and we hold them very carefully. So what's the next one on there? CBOs, or community-based organizations, are valuable because they become the voice of the census at the local level. Becoming a partner can be achieved in many ways, including encouraging response, using social media, sending out email blasts, etc. I mean, we have partners in all shapes and sizes, right, Mark? And,
yep.
you know, I have a couple cities up here where I live, and they have the Respond Now link right on their website. So you go to that city and they, you know, they're looking at let's say you're going to check the garbage schedule or something. They are reminded right then and there that they can respond. So that is a very high quality partner for us, right? Because they are putting our information on their website. Some use social media as well. You know, a lot of them will share things on Facebook or Instagram, but that's what is really important about our partners, and they all do things in different ways. Not all of them have committed to things that grand. We have some partners that will put a poster up, you know, to advertise, you know, let's say census jobs, right? We had all our RAs doing that, and those are meaningful partnerships as well because they are advertising in their place of business, which will have foot traffic and have different groups of people coming in and out. So a partner can help us in many, many ways, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Libraries, boy, they have been a huge partner for us, right? They play key roles. They have knowledgeable and trained staff, internet access, central locations, and they're trusted in their communities. So we have a national partnership with the libraries, and then that filters down to the state levels as well. And they have been incredible. They will dedicate computers just for census responses. They will get volunteers together. You know, they have been incredible in providing different locations, training rooms, you know, tabling events. I know that the RAs, those of you that have been doing this for a while before you've transitioned over to a CRR, you utilize the libraries quite often when you would be looking to promote census jobs out there. So we can never thank the libraries enough.
Absolutely. We got one more here.
Oh, last one there. Statistics in schools. That is, the SIS program reached out to students and families from hard-to-count communities by offering learning opportunities and sending home census information with students. If you have not gone and looked at this Statistics in Schools website, please do. CRRs out there, I think you would be just incredibly impressed with the amount of information on there, and the statistics on states, and they have statistics on everything, but it's just so interesting, and these teachers use this information to assist them and enhance their own curriculum in the classroom. And I literally, Mark, will get on that website and I click and click and click and just, I mean, then an hour goes by. It's just so much fun to look and see what they have.
Yeah, there's a lot on there. It's pretty impressive, the stuff that they've put together, the different activities, and they have materials and activities on there for adult English language learners too, which is new, and that is pretty cool, and I'm very glad that is a part of it as well. I think it's census.gov/schools is the address for that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Take a look at day 5. So we reviewed the language guides, responding by phone, 2020 census.gov, outreach materials, media interaction, professionalism, and identifying census workers. So the language guides, videos, and then there are these kind of special abbreviated versions of 2020 census.gov are available in 58 non-English languages. The enumerators and census takers have a valid ID badge with their photograph, a U.S. Department of Commerce watermark, and an expiration date. And they may also, and very likely will be, carrying Census Bureau bags and other equipment with the Census Bureau logo. Important to know, for folks to know, how to identify a census worker for their own, safety and trust and security, of course.
Yep.
And in terms of talking to the media, the note here is, to not speak to media or media outlets unless you have prior approval from the media specialist or the public information office. And that is a big one. It's something that we, as partnership specialists, I think we have to abide by that same rule, that we don't really speak to the media unless we've gotten that approval from our media specialist is generally how we do that. And many times I've been approached by the media and wanted to ask a couple questions or a few things like that, or hey, I'd be interested in maybe interviewing you quickly. And there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I'd love to do this, I'd love to be a part of this, but I just have to go through my folks in media to get it cleared first, and then be happy to do this. And I always tend to thank people too, because it's a good opportunity generally to get the word out about Census and outreach. But it is important to make sure that you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's before you speak to the media.
Yeah, and then that just brings up a couple more things that came to my mind. Is just there are some blurry lines out there for us in our job, and we have to be very mindful of different things. That being one of them, right? Media outlets. We did talk about that on day 5. We talked about that on day 8. And, Mark S. and I, we were talking about, he mentioned something very similar to what you said. We are approached daily for an interview or questions. And just to keep in mind that the media does not have to disclose who they are. And so we just have to be very careful when we're out there. And, I mentioned those blurry lines or very gray lines sometimes, just because we talked about this also in day 8, that we have to be very, very careful when we're at events and what we're doing out there and who we are there with and out there. So, for example, if there are political parties, we want you to be mindful of avoiding political parties and any kind of immigration, any kind of law enforcement type of situation. And if any, use your best judgment. But if there's a scenario like that, especially if any kind of immigration shows up, we would like to encourage you to just kind of shut down very quietly, shut down your event or your table and just exit and take yourself away from that situation. So there are just, not just media as far as the blurred lines. There are a few other things to always be mindful of. And you have people at your disposal to talk about, but the bottom line, use your best judgment on everything.
Absolutely. Good points there, Mindy. Thank you. Do you want to do the day 6 here?
You bet. I would love to. Day 6, we talked about group quarters enumeration of transitory locations, update leave, non-response follow-up, or we call it NRFU, military bases, and tribal partnership program. So let's see, what did they highlight? They highlighted, to remind you, that group quarters enumeration, which goes by GQ or GQE, counts people living together who usually are not related, who receive services at a facility or organization. So an example there, a college campus, right? That's a group quarters is a perfect example of that. So usually they're not related. That's the big kicker there. Service-based enumeration, or SBE, counts people at shelters, soup kitchens, regularly scheduled mobile food vans, and those living outdoors and unsheltered. During non-response follow-up, or NRFU, enumerators visit households that have not yet self-responded to the census to collect their information. Lastly, Tribal Partnership Program works with tribal governments and communities to ensure a complete and accurate count of American, Indian, and Alaska Native populations. Anything that you want to add on that one, Mark?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, other than just that some of these operations have, have some adjustments in terms of the dates that perhaps were already discussed during day 6 and have now maybe changed since then. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes here before we.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if we talked about. I was listening to that one, and I think we really, or the facilitators really talked about just that those are to be determined dates. But we do have the exciting part at the end of this. We do have some updated dates for you. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we got the big bang at the end of it. And let's talk about day 7.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one. So we heard about low response scores and the response outreach area mapper, also known as ROAM, and the response rate map from our good friend Brian Berman. So he wanted to remind you all that the low response score, also known as LRS, shows the risk of a household not participating in the census. A little technical note here: to make the ROAM application easier to see, remember to adjust the transparency of the low response score filter. Remember that you can click on an individual track to learn more about information, or to learn more information about the neighborhood, including broadband connectivity, languages, and renters and owners in the area. And the response rate map, however, a little different, gives us real-time information on how well our communities are responding relative to others. There's actually a new update to the response map, which is pretty cool, and it shows the ranking. You can choose your state and then see how counties are doing, sort of like who's in the lead in terms of most responses, and you can see sort of the cities too, which is pretty cool. And that's available. That's available right on the same page as the response rates map. Below the text, I think it says 2020 census response rates, and you can click a link and then see the ranking of the cities and the counties. And then, of course, ROAM is available at census.gov/ROAM, and I'm a big fan of ROAM, I have to say. I'm kind of a GIS nerd.
Me too. I know.
So it's always been fun.
It's kind of fun, right? And we are kind of getting pressed for time on here, and so we do have at the end of this slide deck kind of a job aid page. So be prepared when we get there. You might want to do a screenshot or take a picture, because those last 2 websites are on that job aid. So, all right, let's go to day 8, Mark.
Day 8, familiar day for you, huh?
Oh yeah, I know this day. So the MQA, mobile questionnaire assistance, is coming. We will still do this, and we're going to have a great time. So thank you for your patience. The main goal of the MQA is to help people respond to the questionnaire that have not already done so. The locations will be determined by daily live self-response data, and we just gave you that website. You can check it out yourself every day. Partnership, meaning the partnership specialists, we determine where those locations will go. You as CRRs are staffing them. You as a CRR must complete the post-event survey, and I had some screenshots for you on what that looks like. It's very short, very simple, and basically that post-event survey is really there to just look at the successes and just look at the big picture of it. What would we do differently? What would we change? What would we, how would we want to look at an event like that moving forward? Communicate early and often to ensure success. So we talked about that as well. If ever in doubt, please contact us, because the worst thing to do is to not have your answers or not to know what to do. And then it's just really a waste of time and frustrating for everybody.
Good enough.
All right. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're a little pressed for time here, but I think you covered it.
Okay.
I will take on day 9 here and went over the American Community Survey, also known as ACS, and residency requirements. So the big takeaways here are that there are, and we were talking about this already today, Mindy, other Census Bureau surveys being conducted at the same time as the decennial survey. All surveys are conducted by census employees with proper identification. They must have proper ID on them, of course. And then these surveys are required by law to complete. So I thought there was maybe another, I believe this was Jane was one of the folks that did this day. Did she have another item she wanted to send over, didn't she, about MQA?
You know, I did
Mindy?
I did touch on that already.
Okay, good. Cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, and then at the risk of being too meta, do you want to review our day 10?
I like that. You bet. So this is it. This is our final day, and it's been a great journey. We are now talking about just the best practices, rumors, scams, fraud, the FAQs out there that you will get the most when you're out in the field, just miscellaneous, and a final wrap-up of the new dates we have published as of yesterday. So report inaccurate, suspicious, or fraudulent information you read, hear, or spot online to rumors@census.gov. Be on the lookout for scam phishing emails sent to your census email. Stay aware and report suspicious emails to spam@census.gov. Stay updated by visiting. Wow, do I have to say all that? Take a look at that. It's very, very long, but you will have all these websites at your disposal. But please just stay updated because there is a lot of great information on that rumors site. Yeah,
and 2020census.gov in general is just incredible clearinghouse for so much information and news and updates too. I mean, the press releases page too is actually a great place to get the most up-to-date information on Bureau happenings, especially now. But there's a lot on there.
Right.
Maybe that's,
everything changing so quickly right now due to the circumstances. We are looking at that day to day. And then the other thing is that partnership, the partner outreach materials is another great one, and we will have that website for you here in another couple slides, I think.
Yeah. So actually,
here we go. It's right here, the job aid. Yeah.
Here.
So some helpful links that we want you to really look at to help your journey. And you might want to screenshot this or take a picture of this because these are long and I'm not going to rattle them off. But let me just tell you what they are really quickly. The 2020 census, that is the big overview. Again, you get into 2020 census and you can click and click and click and click. But right now, the first thing you see is respond here. But if you go to the top, you can search just about anything. You could even get to Rome and other things just by doing the search function. But the specific websites for the rest coming down, the live response rates, that's the live data coming in that we keep talking to you about. And, Mark and I are so excited every day to jump on there and look and see what our counties are doing and how they've responded. Language support. This is a fantastic site right here. There's so much information on all the different languages out there that we have resources to help someone complete their decennial questionnaire. The outreach materials. That's the next one down. I just mentioned that. So if those of you CRRs that were RAs and we partnership specialists would give you a lot of different flyers and half sheets and posters, this is where they all come from. This is the most robust set of materials you will see. And every day I remember that list, I would click on there and that list gets longer and longer and longer. So a great resource, right, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's the one for sure. Yeah. It's pretty definitive.
So residency rules, you had a training specifically on residency rules, and you can go to this website to refresh your memory and if you have questions when you're out in the field, this is a fantastic bit of information and materials. Rome, so you all went over Rome with our fun Brian that has way too much fun, and he went over Rome and that live response rate website. So that's when you can drill down to the counties and census tracts. Fighting rumors, Mark, you've mentioned this a few times today. This is a great bit of information here, up to date, things that they are getting. Again, if you report something and they have so many reports of something coming in, they will draft something and they'll say, hey, we have reports of this coming in and this is what we found. And then finally, news and events, and this is where you will get your most updated press releases. And actually, this is where we went to find the most up-to-date operational updates that we have to share with everyone, right, Mark?
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll move into that now, and I'll just say great overview of the job aids. Mindy, thank you.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, so we probably have just enough time to cover these slides here, and whoops, oh, yeah, that's good. So, adjusted 2020 census operational plan. Since March, as you folks are well aware, many operations have been delayed and timelines and schedules adjusted due to COVID-19. So this is for several reasons, of course, but to protect the health and safety of the American public, the folks that we're trying to count, as well as the Census Bureau's employees. This has allowed time to implement guidance from federal, state, and local authorities regarding COVID-19, and then just to regroup and, of course, plan and ensure that we can get this complete and accurate count of all communities. So let's talk about a couple of updates as of yesterday. Field activities are being planned to resume after January 1st, 2020, as the ACOs, the area census offices, begin returning to full staff capacity. The date there being get those going June 1st, and then as soon as possible afterwards start getting those field activities up and running again. In-person activities, including numeration, office work, and processing activities, will incorporate the most current guidance from authorities to ensure the health and safety of staff and the public. And just to note that, so this information is current as of today. We're recording this. It's April 14th. So we mentioned a couple different links for news and updates, but this is the one in terms of operational adjustments due to the impact of COVID-19. Folks can visit this website to get the most updated information. And I pulled basically what is the new timeline and changes into the upcoming slides here. Anything you wanted to mention, Mindy, before I move into that?
No, other than we have about 5 minutes before our webinar shuts down.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right.
Not to put the pressure on you, but,
No. I think what I'll do is, I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on these. I just wanted to introduce folks to the new dates. I'll just run through that quickly, if that sounds good.
You bet. It sounds great.
Cool. Okay. So the self-response phase had been scheduled for March 12th to July 31st. This is for folks to self-respond, online, over the phone, by mail. That's been revised to extend all the way to October 31st. So significant amount of extra time there to ensure we count everybody once, only once, and in the right place. And these are all on this information just clipped from the website there that I just shared. Group quarters, there's a couple of different ways that, I'm sure Kelsey went over this, that group quarters facilities can respond to the census. And for those that were using the e-response or paper enumeration, they have revised the schedule to extend that to September 3rd. The remote Alaska operation was to have wrapped up by April 30th, but that is tentatively scheduled to continue through June 19th, and you'll see this on a couple of the operations. It may need further review and coordination to determine if that is enough time to complete that operation. I mentioned this, field offices at peak operations, the goal there is for June 1st. Update leave stateside here, revising that schedule to delay it and extend it, so June 13th to July 9th. Update leave in Puerto Rico. They have not yet determined an official revised schedule for that, so this is another one where still reviewing and working with outside partners and stakeholders to determine when it's going to be best to do the update leave in Puerto Rico. Update enumerate in remote parts of northern Maine and southeast Alaska pushed back, and that revised schedule is June 14th to July 29th. Non-response follow-up, pretty big pushback in the schedule there, so that doesn't start till August 11th now and will go until October 31st. In-person group quarters enumeration, where we have to have census takers actually visit the and spend time at the group quarters, has been rescheduled to July 1st to September 3rd. Service-based enumeration, which was supposed to happen in a couple of weeks here, had already been pushed back from March to the end of April, and now they're still working to see, planning again with outside partners and stakeholders to see what when it's going to be safe and wise to do that operation. So to be determined. Hopefully, we'll be learning more soon on that one. MQA, again, same scenario, essentially, sort of in a holding pattern on that one right now, but hopefully learning more soon. The outdoor count, we call it cancel. This is the one-day enumeration of folks living outdoors and unsheltered. Again, that's another one where we're waiting to determine when it's going to be safe to and wise to do that. The enumeration of transitory locations, just have a tentative date for that so far, September 3rd to September 28th. But again, that one's tentative. And then the Bureau processing the apportionment counts, that was supposed to happen at the end of in the summer and be present by December 31st. But the Bureau is asking Congress to allow them to revise that schedule between October 31st and April 30th of 2021. And then the Bureau is also asking for to process the redistricting data, pushing that back to May 1 to July 31st, 2021. Delivering the apportionment counts to the President, they're asking Congress they could push that back to delivering it by April 30th of 2021. And then the President would have to, instead of having him report it within 7 days, if they could do it within 14 days. And then the redistricting counts delivered to the states by July 31st, 2021, as opposed to April 1st. Those are our updates. Had to speed through them a little bit to stay on time, but again, folks can review them at their leisure at that website that we offered there at the beginning of that portion. Do we have any
nice wrap up?
Oh.
Yeah, we have
Mindy.
one, but nice wrap up under the gun there and giving those updated exciting dates, because that means that we are all going to get really busy again. The last final question was, how do these schedule shifts affect recruiting and hiring? And, well, inevitably, it has affected what the RAs can do and how much they can, travel and all that. But in the big picture, we are still hiring. So we are still recruiting. We are still hiring. We still have, I have not heard the number of how many people we are still trying to hire, but, please continue to offer information on Census jobs as well in the meantime. And if you have any virtual ways of outreach to do so, then, we're still hiring. So anything else you want to add to that one there, Mark?
I think that's great. I mean, and I'll just say that, this is the new plan, but with being in a situation, that we're in with COVID-19, it requires some flexibility and an understanding that, some of this stuff may change. And, we've been getting kind of updates here and there over the past month or month or so. So I would recommend that folks, stay tuned to the press release page and then that operational adjustments COVID-19 website too for some of the latest information.
Sounds great. Well, it has been a pleasure to do this series of trainings for everybody, and working with my colleagues have been fantastic, but I think we are wrapped up at this time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Mindy. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, everybody that put this together, and thanks to everybody who has watched on the YouTube.
Yeah, enjoy the trainings, and we had a really great time doing this for you, and please continue to ask lots of questions if you have any after you've gone through this. So thank you, everybody, and good luck. It's going to be a great adventure for all of us.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this training series. The recording will now stop.